Welcome. We are broadcasting live from the mothership. You are tuned in and listening to Starseed Energy Radio with your host Jonah Bolt. Starseed Energy Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. Starseed Energy Radio goes live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, what's up, Spaceship Earth? Thanks for tuning in. You are now receiving a live transmission from Starseed Radio, where you can always tune in to hear the colors and see the music. I'm your host, Jonah Bolt. Today is August 6, 2015. We have an amazing show lined up for you today. We're joined by a very special guest who it's so good to have him back on the show. It's been actually a couple years now. We have Allen Hoffman joining us later on the show after the daily download with our very own Ryan Matthew Durnick. I also want to say a shout out to StarseedRadio.com for bringing you the latest news and updates. Check us out. We have Ryan's Twitter feed, my Twitter feed. We have lots of news articles always going up and out. Stay informed, stay alive. And also want to give out the toll-free number 888-400-2328. And that number is to call if you haven't received your free piece of Elite Shungite. We're sending out Shungite to everyone. It's an amazing quantum healing stone. And also, if you want information on free energy devices, how to build them, how to make them, I have about 15 PDF files. Please email us, starseedtechnologies.com, or call toll-free 888-400-2328. With that, we're going to get the show started with our quote of the day. And this quote, and I quote, "Carry out a random act of kindness with no expectation of reward, safe in the knowledge that one day someone might do the same for you." End quote. And that is from our very own Princess Diana. And with that, we're going to welcome Ryan Matthew Durnick for the daily download. Ryan, thanks for coming on. How you doing today?
Very well, Jonah. How you doing today?
Doing good. So the daily quote from Miss Princess Diana. I mean, her mother must have been, don't say horrible things like that, because we know who her mother is, the Queen. Someone must have heard her say something, probably why they killed her. She was talking fresh or something like that. Because
well, it was also she was having an affair with a Saudi prince, if I'm not mistaken, as well. That was pretty well kept under wraps, and that was another taboo issue going on, and that's why, unfortunately, she was taken out in a tunnel.
That's right. I remember when that happened. That's right. Mm-hmm. So let's jump into the daily download of some news articles for today and what's happening around the world. Go ahead. Let's get into some Earth changes. What's happening on Mother Gaia today?
Well, Mother Gaia, as always, is active and ever-changing. We have a 4.8 earthquake 57 kilometers south of Domarteng in China, a 5.2 53 kilometers southwest of Padagismempuan, Indonesia, a 5.24 kilometers northeast of Funai Shiakawi, Japan, and that one actually shook buildings in and around Tokyo. There was no tsunami warning, just because the magnitude wasn't high enough to warn a tsunami. And aside from that, in the last 24 hours, there was a 5.2, 82 kilometers southwest of Kutai, Indonesia. In other news, solar weather, NOAA's giving a 40% chance of geomagnetic storming, but basically what's really going to occur is at the northern latitudes it will give way to the possibility, especially going in over the weekend, of the Aurora Borealis or Northern Lights. So those should go into a little overdrive over the weekend. So any photographers that want to get some really cool Northern Light shots, be sure to check out the northern latitudes.
And with that being said, Ron, I just want to jump in and say an article I read. I'm going to post this up on Starseed Radio. I don't know if you've seen this, but Magic Tree, they're calling it. It's multi-blossom hybrid tree, grows 40 different kinds of fruit on one tree. And it has a picture of it. I got it from RT.com, RT News. And you got to see this tree. It's just purple and pink and it's like a rainbow tree with 40 different kinds of fruit. I can't even name 20 fruits. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I'm going to post that up. But what else is happening in the world?
In regards to the ongoing typhoon, it was a super typhoon at one point. It had winds of 180 mile an hour sustained in the Western Pacific, Sodalor, and now is eyeing Taiwan with damaging winds and flooding rain. At its peak, it was at 180 miles an hour. Now it's just a Category 2, and that should be impacting Taiwan and mainland China. And aside from that, new news came out from Malaysia. How credible that is yet to be determined, because the certain inspectors said that the wreckage on Reunion Island was not from the MH370 flight, the disappearing flight from Malaysian flight about a year and a half ago. And now there's an outcry from Southeast Asian countries, as well as from the victims' families, as well as in mainland China, saying we want answers and we want the truth in regards to this very, very strange disappearance and sad circumstance that lost over 200 lives as they just disappeared off the radar. In other news, Indonesia is ordering fresh shutdowns of flights in and around Bali, and this is all because of a active volcano, a Mount Raung volcano, and this volcano has actually been active for quite some time. And it's a very active region in the Ring of Fire. There's always been flight cancellations around Indonesia, and
shout out to my dad in Indonesia.
Oh, shout out to your dad. I did not know he's in Indonesia right now.
Well, he's not there right now, but he's heading out that way, and he's got a little, little special island he likes to go to. So, FYI, Dad, be on the lookout.
Be on the lookout, because a lot of flights have been canceled with Virgin Atlantic and Jetstar. And other really cool news, I think, Italy is joining Iceland in this kind of a perforation drilling project that they're doing with volcanoes. And in regards to the Krafla volcano, they want to see how they can actually, at certain times of volcanic activity in and around volcanoes, that they can actually extract and kind of utilize that energy. And as we know, Iceland has been at the forefront of that for their geothermal engineering feats that they've done over the last century, of course, up until now. And so that's really cool, and to how that they can learn from each other to actually utilize the geophysical properties of Mother Earth to get free renewable energy. It's a
wow,
cool concept. Yeah.
Imagine that. If you email us at starseedtechnologies.com, I'll also send you some PDFs on how to get some free energy. Imagine that.
Imagine that free energy. Who would have thought? But let's keep going with the cabal and the oil companies and having crazy wars and suicide bombings. And speaking of suicide bombing, there was a suicide bombing in outside of a Saudi Arabian mosque. It killed 15, and it was a security force that had the mosque. And of course, none other than ISIS. ISIS was responsible for it.
Big scary ISIS.
Big scary.
Another report that came out today: the Pentagon issues a scary climate security report. Ooh, scary climate security. Dun, 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 as Russia lays claim to vast Arctic territory. And we know what's going on. We've been talking about the Arctic for a while. We don't know what's going on, I should say, but there is a lot going on. What's going on, we really don't know, but lots of nations, lots of armies, lots of stuff in there, in the Arctic ice caps, both of them. And who knows? They say there's entrances to inner Earth, there's entrances to this, there's, all different things. But go ahead. What else has happened, Ryan?
Well, as we know, the Hiroshima anniversary is just going on right now, and that's been about 70 years since the Hiroshima bomb was dropped. And as we know, we had intelligence up until before the Pearl Harbor bombing in 1941. So you can ask yourself, was that a false flag because we knew about it? Hey, that's up to you to decide. But and on to other things going on. The wildfires have been ongoing in the western United States. They've been quelled somewhat because of the cooler temperatures. Of course, some fires are raging more than others. The Rocky Fire is very large and formidable in California. And actually, the California wildfires are so bad that they're worrying that it's going to taint local wines in the Napa Valley specifically, because you don't want to have smoky wine now, do you? It's gonna taste on your palate. It's not going to be good pairing with your fish or your chicken or what have you.
God forbid.
God forbid. I mean, that would be very bad. On to other news. Researchers have successfully hacked into the Tesla Model S car, showing that even the Tesla car is unavoidably going to be hacked, just like the Jeep was hacked and a couple other models were hacked. And it's just showing that the problems with making your car a smart car, and also Tesla's sales have been not doing that well. They've retracted on their sales.
And we also know that some of the electric cars in stores I've read, people check this out and Google it, actually take up more fossil fuels than what you would save if you actually just use gasoline. So again, another scam, just like the Tesla battery is a big scam for all the baby boomers out there. You can listen to my previous shows talk about that. I'm not going to get into it. But I also want to mention that secret UFO files also released as German government loses the right to keep research private. And this is on the HuffingtonPost.com. theological.com. I'm going to post this up. This is an awesome article they released. We talked about the other day, another country here, the U.S., on Project Blue Book, now German government. So to all the naysayers out there, there's tons of files out there to show you craft and ETs, and so I'll post that article also up on Starseed Radio. Anything else, Ryan, to cover before we go?
Before we go, just let you know, in regards to an unfortunate event that happened, a Palestinian rammed a car in an Israeli West Bank. And they think it could be connected. They did take the individual down, but they think it could be connected because of last week where they immolated a baby throwing a firebomb, and it was connected to the Israeli police forces that they threw that in. Luckily, the mother and father got out of there alive, and then a day later they had a protest, as we know, and Israelis forces said, hey, they were throwing rocks at us, so we decided to incapacitate one of the individuals, a teenage Palestinian boy, and we shot him down there, and he's dead as a doornail, unfortunately. So it's just showing that violence only begets violence, and that consciousness to evolve, we have to become more peaceful and to reach a certain homeostasis. And that being said,
one more article from Neil Young to a flash mob. Apache stronghold blazes through country. If people haven't heard of this, they're trying to take away Apache land. So they've been doing flash mobs all over from New York, Times Square, all across the country. It's a great article from Indian Country Today Media Network. I'll post the article up on the website, but support the Native Americans. We've already done enough damage, so now they're trying to take away more land. So again, thank you, Ryan, for coming on with the daily download. And I'm going to vote the Game of Thrones person of the day. I'm going to go with Princess Diana. I think she deserves the Game of Thrones person of the day. So I'm going to post her up with the quote so everyone can see that. Again, Ryan Matthew Durnick from bellwetherpost.com. Ryan, thanks so much for the daily download. And now we're going to be joined by our special guest of the show, none other than Dale Allen Hoffman. He's been on the show. He's been all over the world talking about ancient knowledge, wisdom, toning, shamanic practices. And with that, you can check out DaleAllenHoffman.com. And no other than Dale himself. Welcome to the show. How you doing, Star Brother?
I'm doing phenomenal. Gosh, when's the last time I was on? It's been 4 or 5 years, I think.
At least. It's before 2012, and we're still here, so it's good to have you back.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, if you would, Dale, give us a little your background story, if you would. When did you first get into toning, to vibrations? Did you have a certain awakening at a certain point? What was your story, your lead into this new age type of information, ancient knowledge, sacred wisdom?
It's a rare thing. It's something I didn't talk about for a while because it's different now. It's different now that we're talking about star seeds and those of us that are here for this evolution. But for a long time, I didn't talk about things that happened to me as a child just because then someone would say, oh, well, you're special then. And then a lot of those people that would say that, though, didn't realize that they forgot about things that happened to them when they were younger, and they did go through a lot of these same kinds of events. And then as we start awakening, we're like, hey, wait a second, that was happening to me too. For me, it started... The vibration thing came after a little while. What it started with for me was with the Bible. I was always baffled being 5, 6, 7. My grandmother was a pillar in the Methodist church. She lived right next door to us. And I was basically raised with the Bible. My mother was very hands-off. She was like, I don't care, whatever, do what you want. But I always I was always the kid with the questions. I remember being 7 years old asking my grandmother. I laid out 5 different Bibles on the floor, and I was looking at the Beatitudes in the Gospel of Matthew, which we were talking about in Vacation Bible School. And I'm like, how come all 5 of these Bibles say something completely different? 3 of them really had absolutely no resemblance to the others. And my grandmother was like, you got to take that on faith. And I'm like, well, what's faith? She's like, go talk to the minister. I'm like, okay. So I talked to the minister 2 days later, and I say the same thing to him. He's like, well, you have to take that on faith. And I said, what's faith? And he's like, well, you have to learn that through faith. And I'm like, you're not answering my questions at all. It started something for me, and I kept reading different Bibles, stuff about the Bible, and I was constantly troubled. I was irked by the fact there were so many inconsistencies. There was a lot of things that were just wrong. I mean, they're just wrong. This crazy stuff in there. And I just kept going with it. And then I started studying ancient languages, specifically Aramaic, and got really deep into the language itself and started realizing that, like in the scholarly field with Aramaic is a good example, there's a lot of information passed down that's impregnated or indoctrinated into you when you go to whether it be a theological seminary or even a college, to learn the language itself, which is a lot of theories that have been passed down that aren't actually proven. It's just, as long as you can regurgitate what was programmed in as perfectly as possible, get as high of a score, then you get this certain, you get letters after your name, whatever, and you fit the mold, perfectly, and then you're welcome into the good boys club. And it irked me because a lot of the stuff that was being talked about, when I would study further, I found out simply wasn't true. And then everything changed for me. I was in the Ozark Mountains. It was the summer of 1995. I was at a place called Heartland, which Dr. Michael Rice teaches experiential ways to get inside the Aramaic teachings of Yeshua, known as Jesus, and how to actually put them into practice. And I spent 7 months there, staying just a couple doors down from his home, and it was the middle of the night, and I remember couldn't sleep, rummaging through a box, and I ran into this little cassette that said the Aramaic prayer of Jesus from Rocco Errico, and I shoved this little cassette into the player, and literally in that moment, my entire life transformed, changed, evolved. I realized why I was here. I'm sitting here in the middle of the night, and I keep hearing that first word of the Lord's Prayer, which sounds like this, Alun. And I kept hearing this sound behind the speaking of it that sounded more like this. Oh, the same word, but toned very consciously. Here it is, the middle of the night. The moon was really bright that night. It was midsummer, and I started walking down the dirt path toward the lake, and I got in one of the canoes, pushed it out, and paddled myself out into this little cove that was surrounded on 3 sides by rock. And ahead of me, here's the moon. Actually, at that point, it was almost behind me, and I spun myself back around and looked directly at it, and I just sat there until the lake became very still, and I started making that sound that I just heard for the first time 20 minutes earlier, that oh. And I was watching these rings move out away from the canoe, and after about 2 or 3 seconds, I heard it reflecting back from the canyon walls, and I saw the rings coming back. The moon was strong enough that I could see this, and then I started to lose sense of which sound I was toning and what was the reflection or the echo. And what started happening, and I literally felt as if I was spinning, and I remember looking up, and the Milky Way is just right there, not as bright as it could be because the moon was out, right above my head, and I started seeing sparkles. I started seeing gleaming, and it was the most profound experience I'd ever had in my entire life up to that point. I think I was 22 at the time. I'd had different sort of awakenings going back to when I was 6 or 7 in the woods, and just amazing stuff. I would meditate and do these things. I didn't realize I was toning when I was a kid. I used to go into a little a tunnel, an irrigation tunnel that went under the road next to that would connect our house with the farm across the street, so a stream could go through. And I'd sit there in this tunnel going, oh, just making sounds, not necessarily Aramaic. They were Aramaic root sounds, little did I know when I'm 4, 5, 6 years old. And all of a sudden, this new world opened to me that I realized, wait a second here, I can actually make a sound, and it doesn't even have to be what we would label a sacred sound. I could make a sound, especially something that's a vowel sound, and just very consciously, I didn't know it was called toning, but just consciously make that sound, as I would say now, tone it, and I can feel that within 2 or 3 seconds. I can feel the essence, the vibration of that sound or tone, and I could study 20 years and study that word and all the linguistics and what all the scholars and the experts, or what some would say the quackademics, would say about the word, yet in 3 seconds I can feel it. I've done toning with children, teenagers, and they feel it right away. I could spend hours talking about it. They wouldn't feel what they feel just by putting that sound, just putting it out there, essentially. It's just one of the most amazing transformative experiences with all the meditation and breath work and everything I've done for years. It's the one thing that you feel instantaneously. It's just an incredible experience.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. And what I want to get into, Dale, we're going to take a commercial break here in a few minutes. I want to get into some of the ancient knowledge and the ancient secrets, if you will, of toning, because this goes back, toning, just tribal beats, just the beats, the clapping, the drumming, and what that does, physiologically to the human. Because every tribe on the planet, as we know, did ceremonial dancing and beating and walking on the earth and walking together and chanting, and there's a reason for that. There's a harmonious reason for that. So now you had this awakening. How did you first get into teaching and and doing classes and getting out there? Was this something natural to you? Did it come naturally to just work with people in toning, or did you take classes to enhance how to teach people toning?
It came very organically. As a matter of fact, I didn't even know that what I was doing was toning until years later. It was years later that I ran into actually a great book that came out in the early 70s from Laurel Elizabeth Keyes. It's called Toning. And that's when I started discovering Jonathan Goldman and Stephen Halpern, Richard Schulman, all these different people that were working with sound healing. Literally, as an example,
I love Richard Schulman. I just want to say shout out to Richard Schulman. I love that guy.
Richard's awesome. He's an awesome friend too. So
sorry,
an amazing guy. Richard, I learned a lot from Richard in that Richard will sit in front of a piano and he will allow his temple to open completely, and you will not hear a single note come out of that piano until he's in that place of presence. And then every single vibration that he plays is laced with that sound healing. Another example would be Marina Ray, another dear friend of mine who plays Native American flute. She'll stand right there with that flute in her hand, and it could be a minute until she's in that place, so that the fractal, or whatever it is that you would call it, that expands from that vibration, is coming from a place of balance, from a place of presence. And it was years before I found out that what I was doing was actually toning, and that's when I started looking more into the science behind it and a lot of the research that's been done, which isn't really a lot, much like Reiki or meditation. People didn't seem to, there was almost no research on a lot of these things because there wasn't someone that could profit off the research, so it just wasn't done. But that's changing now. It's shifting. You've got Reiki in hospitals. You've got meditation in hospitals. Mark my words, give it 10 years.
That's right.
Definitely within 20, you're going to see toning in hospitals. How much more simple does it get to just make an ooh or a rah and make that sound? Your body, that's what sound healing really is. Your body, what I believe is that it assembles and or evolves itself back into, recalibrates itself back into its true, natural, authentic vibration or vibrations or set of sound frequencies, because it focuses you in such a way of like nothing that I've ever done before. It's just an incredible experience.
I remember when I was out in Tucson for the Gem Show a few years ago, and I was with the Crystal Tone guys with the Crystal Bowls, and what amazing experience to be with them for a couple of weeks and around those 1,000 crystal bowls, and how amazing each one of those frequencies from the stones was different and how people felt afterwards. And I watched person after person after person come in and try the different ones and feel the vibration. And actually, Crystal Tones, while I was working with them for a little bit, actually in Miami Memorial Hospital, had called them and asked them to come down and play the crystal bowls for 2 people that were in comas, and another doctor office in Miami called them for the same thing, to come in. So when I heard that, I was like, wow, things really are changing. That one of the doctors at Miami Memorial probably maybe read an article about toning and just wanted to try it out, but just the instance where they even attempted to try it in a mainstream Memorial Hospital in Miami is just what you said. It's very profound. So there is more science coming out. There are more documentaries, more studies coming out. And if you really look back into history, this is old, toning and beating and drums. If you would, Dale, we have about 2 minutes for a break. Would you give us a little mantra or a tone to the listeners out there so they can get a little sample of this vibration you're talking about? Do you have like a mantra or something so that people can hear sort of what a mantra is with toning?
There's so many. Usually what I'll do when I start a toning circle is something with just like a basic word, but one of the phrases that's amazing to tone is just the first line of the Aramaic Lord's Prayer, the Aramaic prayer of Yeshua, which was more a tone poem, less about these theological ideas. So what I'll do is rather than even speaking, I'm going to tone just that first line 2 times just to make it quick, so people can actually hear the sound in more of an Eastern dialect. The Western dialects are more harsh and guttural. And I'll just tone that twice so you can get an idea of what it sounds like or feels like. This is just the first line of the Lord's Prayer. See, now before I'm even doing it, I can already feel it. Just be open, telling everybody, pay attention to your breath.
Wow, I could feel it. My third eye started tingling, and I got chills through my body. So I know I felt it, Dale. That was awesome, and and that's how I gauge things when I was awakened to these new information and technologies. Is if my body physically responds to something, something's happening. What? I don't know, but something is happening when I get chills and my third eye opens up, or my crown chakra, or that's how I gauge things now, how I resonate. So that was great. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's it. You said you don't know what's happening. We don't really need to. It's nice to see. It's a nice confirmation. But when you can feel it, and that's when the true healing is happening. You don't have to know what's healing per se. Just allowing your temple to be open and allowing that recalibration to happen. I mean, come on.
That's it. We're going to take a quick commercial break and want to get into the science and some of the studies and stuff behind it. We're going to go deeper into toning, the ancient history of it, even going back to Aristotle's, the music, the sound of the spheres. I mean, this is ancient information. So hang on right there. You're listening to Star Seed Radio. And if you haven't called toll-free 888-400-2328, give us a call. We got information for you. We'll be right back.
Dust down the microphone, channeling the greatest. Speak through the mouthpiece. Little red bone fire starter from the southeast. Run with the warriors, armors on my chest plate. Meet you with the battle ones, blaring at the west gate. No time for dead weight. I'm moving vertically.
Off the moon and back. Will you watch the world burn from your jet? Or plant a tree on your spaceship? We'll never find another home. We can feel the wind blow. Will you watch the world burn from your jet? Or plant a tree on your spaceship? We'll never find another home. We can feel the wind blow. Music on the radio.
All right, welcome back to the show. That is Medium Troy. That is Space Tree. I love that song. Before commercial break was Sirach, Little Spaceship. We got to get Sirach back on the show. And that's why I play music like that. And Dale, we're joined by Dale Allen Hoffman. Dale, is because music is so powerful. Music has that vibration, that tone, just like you said. Like when I just heard that song, Medium Troy, as soon as it came on, a big smile came across my face because I know the intention of that song, the vibration of that song. It's like pure love. And I've played that song 50 times in a row some nights while I'm cooking dinner or something. It's like you just know that vibration. It's not about playing a song over and over. It's about feeling that song. I feel that song, and it's so amazing. We're joined by Dale Allen Hoffman, an Aramaic toner, teaching shamanic practices, ancient knowledge, ancient wisdom. We're talking about toning. What is it? How does it work? What do vibrations do? Before we went to commercial break, you sampled a little bit of toning. Dale, now if you would go into a little bit about what is the history of toning. What does it date back to? What other tribes do you know or civilizations use toning in their practices or ceremony?
You just hit on something that is something, just talking from an Eastern perspective. Paramahansa Yogananda, there's a quote right in the head of my book that's coming out in October. I'd like to read it to you. It's only 2 sentences. This is from Yogananda, from a book of his called Cosmic Chants. It says, sound or vibration is the most powerful force in the universe. Music is a divine art to be used not only for pleasure, but as a path to God realization. Vibrations resulting from devotional singing, which is, of course, toning or singing, lead to attunement with the cosmic vibration or the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. What that really resonates for me. When I started looking really deep into the history of toning, I just going back even within the last few decades and couple of hundred years, I would run into like Beautiful Painted Arrow, whose actual name is Joseph Rael. Beautiful Painted Arrow, his Tiwa name, which is Pueblo Navajo, northern New Mexico, sounds like this: Shlutkoy, Shlutkoy, and it actually has the sound of the arrow flying through the air, the arrow hitting the target, and koy, which is the reverberations and that vibration moving across the target after the arrow hits. Tiwa is a language that is thousands of years old, don't really know how old. They've never written Tiwa down. Joseph just re-released Being and Vibration, several quotes of which are in my book. They never wrote Tiwa down because they knew that even to this day, if they wrote it down, it would allow a loss of recall, so that now you would be having a mental relationship with words on a page rather than the vibrations themselves. And by not writing it down, it allows those sounds to evolve. That, takes me go back farther. You go into like the indigenous peoples in the center of, the Aborigines of Australia, and they actually have sounds and words that aren't really words in a classic sense that could be written down because they have a tonality to them. A sound like that. How do you write that down? You look at the click languages of Africa. How do you write that down? The 30 or 40 different clicks that they say if you don't learn it when you're a child, you're never going to learn it because an adult can't even conceive the difference in all these different kinds of clicks and pops that are in that language. You go into Egypt and you go into the sounds like Ra, which is one of the words for the sun god Horus, which was the only begotten son of God, exact same historical backstory as Jesus, born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis rather than the Virgin Isis Mary. 3 kings followed the star in the east. All of the Jesus backstory actually comes not from Christianity or Jesus, it comes from Horus. The sun was also called Ra, and Ra was one of those tones that they would start at the base of the central pillar, which we call here in the West the chakras, which actually comes from Sanskrit, I believe, and would draw that sound Ra up, either as a silent mantra or as a tone that's physically sounded, and you're actually drawing the energy up through the 7 energy centers. In Christianity, they mistook the 7 energy centers of Mary Magdalene, which were written about in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. They didn't realize that they weren't 7 demons or 7 vices, they were 7 energy centers, and it doesn't say Jesus cast them out. It actually says he stimulated the movement of her 7 energy centers. Ra was one of those sounds in ancient Egypt that was drawn up the chakra system. If you go back into ancient Akkadian and Phoenician and Sumerian, we've got all of this evidence of toning happening then. It's funny because people ask me all the time, they're like, is Aramaic the mother tongue? What's the mother tongue? And I'm like, what's honest? If we were honest, the mother tongue probably would sound like Tim Allen on Home Improvement. It's probably grunting and things like that, and I'm sure there's a lot of tones. There probably wouldn't have been this complex thing that we're looking for some kind of language forming. You're never going to find that because it's in the ethers. The echoes are everywhere, but they've fractally turned into all these different things. I believe that toning takes us back to, it takes the time and the space out of it, takes us back to just like those people 30,000 years ago sitting in a cave around a small campfire, just making a simple sound. It takes all of that, the culture, and not only does it enrich it, it almost wipes it off the plate to realize that this is something that's so eternal that, much like what Yogananda said, there's nothing more powerful than sound, that cosmic vibration, the word. That's what and mathematics ties into that, and fractals and Mandelbrot and his ideas tie into that, that when you can just have that sound that you allow to express through you, and it comes from that place of presence, that literally brings, like I started to mention, an orchestra that's out of tune. It's kind of like a body that has all these different dis-eases, yet when you tune those instruments, you bring the body back into sound health. Not just healing through sound or sound healing, but sound health. That's what it means, that you're recalibrated, you're back in that place. And I'm sure this has been done for tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. We just don't know, because the thing about toning is we can only go on what's written or what's scratched into a cave somewhere. And I'm not sure that most of the research that has been done cares about things like that, unfortunately. And that's why these Aboriginal indigenous languages and cultures are so incredibly important. If we could just leave them alone, stop messing them up, stop this ridiculous evangelizing and this missionary work that wants to force Western culture on these people that are so untainted and so pure. I think we'll learn more from those that are here now that way than we could ever teach them. There's nothing we can teach them that's more important than who they already are, naturally.
And I feel there's also agenda, Dale, when you say that. There's an agenda to wipe out that ancient history, why they knock down all the temples and build churches, and why they wipe out the rainforest, because there's medicine men and shamans out there with ancient, thousands-of-year-old knowledge. The shamans of the rainforest are like libraries. So when they cut down the rainforest and they're killing the tribes because they have nowhere to live, literally destroying their food supply and killing people, they're killing information, and they know what they're doing. And one of the things you said was the word resonate, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because there's an event coming up, and resonate is a big part of that. But one of the most profound things you said is language is the most powerful tool, the most powerful vibration. And just to give you an example of that, I read an article a few months ago that talked about how there's U.S. military bases in 150 countries around the world. And I was blown away by that number. I didn't know we had military bases in that many countries. I was like, whoa, are you serious? And then a few days later, I was looking at our iTunes downloads of Starseed Radio, and Starseed Radio is being downloaded in 162 countries around the world. And I was like, wow, I had this epiphany. So within 4 or 5 years of me doing the radio show, my voice has become more widely accepted and wanted than U.S. military bases in 400 years of occupation around the world. And that was my example of how powerful my voice is, our voice is, your voice is. Together, the voice carries to, more countries than the U.S. military could ever try to just, drop in with fear and all that. And it's very, it was an epiphany for me. Like, wow, we are affecting people. People are listening to this information. And it's old information and old knowledge. And the ancient gods like Thoth and Horus are so important to learn about and learn the real meaning behind it, who they were, why they were. So we said resonate. There's an event coming up, Resonate, that you're going to be part of. What does resonate mean to you and others in the world? What does that word mean? Like, how can we build a theme through Resonate with science, spirituality, healing, oneness? What does that mean to you, resonate? Explain to the listeners maybe what resonating is, because a lot of listeners may not even know what that word means physically, like I would just explain with my goosebumps when you did the toning before commercial break.
Well, the goosebumps are it, exactly. You mentioned the response from your third eye, of course, your pineal gland straight behind that. Resonance, the easiest way to give it to somebody is that I walk up to a piano and I hit a note, and as I hit whatever, middle A, and what's going to happen is, or even better is even hitting the chord, or if I hit that middle A and different sub-frequencies, and in other words, lower and higher frequencies are going to begin to resonate, that are in resonance with that sound. If I hit a chord, I'm going to get even more of that. Or let's say I put two pianos beside each other and I hit a middle C on the left piano. The middle C on the right piano is going to begin to resonate without me touching it. Now, not only will the middle C respond, but all of the C's on the second piano and the first piano are going to respond. And even more than just those C's, there's also, because the piano is not a 100% pure sine wave, that doesn't, it's an instrument of resonance. Like, as an example, if I hit any note on a piano, there's not just the note that you're hitting that's going to respond. There's going to be other notes that are going to respond as well. Now, what's even more intriguing is I have two tuning forks, and I have a middle C tuning fork, and I put that next to a middle A tuning fork. That is a pure sine wave. Nothing's really going to happen. There's not really any resonance. However, if I get that middle C tuning fork and I get another middle C tuning fork, I strike the middle C one, the first one, and I bring a second one beside it, what's going to start happening is the second middle C tuning fork will begin to resonate regardless of touching it or not. This is exactly what our heart cells do. If you take two heart cells, you put them on a microscope, you look deep enough, one heart cell is beating, bump, 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 bump. You bring another heart cell. This is rather old science. I mean, this is 30, 40-year-old science. Bring the second heart cell in, you get the first one going bump, bump, bump. The second one's going bump, 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 bump. And what happens is the one that's stronger, the one with the predominant frequency and or stronger frequency, which would be not the one going, not always necessarily the one going faster, but the one that's stronger, when you get it close enough to the second heart cell, they will come into synchrony. They will synchronize. The resonance of the two will literally find the common point between the two, and they will synchronize, and that's actually how heart cells work. They're all synchronously vibrating, bump, 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 and that's exactly what's happening with resonance in toning. If I resonate a tone, I always begin all speaking events with toning. I tone usually Alun, and then I move into the Aramaic Lord's Prayer, because it's not, I don't have to come out and do clever jokes. Most professional speakers, Toastmasters International, they come out and they get people on their side and they smile and they tell jokes. I don't do any of that stuff. I come out and I tone. People feel it instantaneously, even if they don't agree with anything I'm saying. They don't know what I'm doing. They don't know why it's happening, as you mentioned earlier. You know, they feel that, and then we come from that place of sound healing. We come from that place of presence of everyone resonating together. Doesn't mean everybody's feeling the same thing, but that sound is resonating different frequencies, different tonalities, different vibrations within each person's body temple. And much like an orchestra, we come into tune so that now when I do start to speak words, most of us, very many of us, if not the entire room, is on exactly the same page in terms of resonance. That doesn't mean we all feel the same way, but our temples are open just because of a simple sound or a simple vibration. To me, that's resonance in a nutshell. I can say 1,000 words about what something means, yet if I tone it, you're going to go, oh my God, I don't know what that means. I don't understand linguistically what it means, but I feel that in my body. That, to me, is what resonance is all about.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. That's exactly how I feel. It's the physical sensation, the pineal gland. It's paying attention to your body, and that's how I first distinguished information when I awoke about 6 years ago to we've been lied to, and Christopher Columbus discovered America, and all this propaganda and all this programming. I started listening to my body. If my body has chills or shifts, or I feel something opening up, or I pay attention to that, because that is a sure sign that even if my brain doesn't understand what's happening, my body does. They always say, my mother always said, listen to your gut, pay attention to your gut, and I never knew what that meant until a few years ago. Like, oh, my gut, my instinct, my physical reaction, my physical resonance to information. That's how I found out that my soul originated from the star of Arcturus. I'm Arcturian. Is when I read information about Arcturians, my body goes nuts. Aside from like Lyrian or Pleiadians or different star races, when it's Arcturians, as soon as I heard that word, I was like, whoa, what's that? And I was off, but it was my body that told me that, and it was my body that I listened to. So you mentioned you have a new book coming up, Dale, and I want to dive into that a little bit. We have about 10 minutes left on the show. What can people find in this new book coming out? What information? What are people going to learn? And how can people, get in your new book when it comes out? Is it going to be online? Are you going to have a book release somewhere? Tell us about the book, please.
Just to put simply, I wanted to make the first book that I put out. I mean, I've got 14 different CD programs. Some of them are like 2 CDs, 3 CDs, 4 CDs. Some of these CD programs, I've got a DVD out there. I wanted my first entrance out there not to be written words on a page, but rather my voice. And, I mean, that voice is in every continent on Earth, except, as far as I'm aware, Antarctica. I haven't gotten to the penguins yet. It's resonated all across the Earth. Now, I wanted the first book that I put out, and first books that I put out, to be about toning, because people could get into that sound, and rather than me just pushing out lots of teachings that, maybe teachings or even opinions on some level, I think most of them are, my book is in 3 sections. It's called Echoes of an Ancient Dream, Toning the Aramaic Words of Yeshua. I call it Echoes of an Ancient Dream. It ties in with a theme that runs through the book of fractals, of circles, of going so deep into toning that, like I mentioned earlier, you lose the sense of what sound is leaving and the voices that are coming back. Toning in a group is amazing. Toning with your child is amazing. Toning with your partner, your lover, is amazing. The book's in 3 sections. The first section is basically my story. The first 6 chapters are it starts with me in the middle of the night, in the first time that I ever heard the Aramaic Lord's Prayer from that cassette tape, and me pushing the canoe out, etc. It goes into me laying the Bibles out on my grandmother's floor. I still remember the smell of her living room. I remember the rug that I was sitting on. I remember exactly the way it looked and felt. And it goes into how in the final moments of my mother's life, the final hours, the last 24, a little over about 36 hours of her life, I actually got up into her hospital bed in the nursing home and actually held her in my arms, and we toned together. And the last sound that she could make was the sound, She wasn't able to speak words anymore. She was covered in tumors, cancer all over her body. I got up into the bed. The last sound she could make was the sound, like an M. That's the letter mem in Aramaic and Hebrew, which intriguingly means water or flowing expanse. If you put an aleph next to it, which is the mem aleph, the sound ma is the sound that's uttered in more languages than any other language on earth, than any other sound on earth, that a child makes in the reference to its maternal figure in its life. Whether it's in their language or not, children tend to look at the mother and go, ma, interesting. And that was the final sound that she made was ma. And I talk about how I toned her out. I talk about how 2 years later I toned my daughter, Shemaiah, in by toning right there in the hospital room, toning the Lord's Prayer, toning different Aramaic sounds and words. I talk about how I would tone in tunnels and tone in streams when I was a kid, not knowing anything about toning. The second section is essentially going into Pardes, which is Peshat Remez Darash and Sod. Just to make it very brief, Pardes is an acronym that created the English word paradise. Pardes is 4 levels of translation. Peshat would be the top level, which means just the literal black and white words on the page. What's the scholarly linguistic meaning of the word? Sod is the deep level, which is the secret level or the revelation level. Secret, not that you're not allowed to see it, but rather it's only revealed when the body is open, when the temple is open. It's not something that happens in the head. It's beyond the intellect. It's more on an intelligence level, and that's where the cosmic and the galactic comes in. I sort of unpack layers of just a couple of the phrases from Jesus and a couple words in Aramaic and Hebrew. And then the third section is actually toning. I talk a bit about the history of toning very simple sounds, and then I actually lay out several words that are attributed to Yeshua in his native Aramaic language, and I actually show the levels and layers of meaning in the root sounds of each word. And then we're going to go in with a companion audio that people are going to be able to download or get the CD version of. And you're going to actually be able to make these tones that actually fell from the lips of Yeshua. And I say if, Yeshua were an actual man that walked the earth. There's a big if. We just don't know that. We're actually going to be able to tone those sounds that even if he did or not, they were very sacred words in ancient Aramaic, like Rachma and Inanna and Avun and Nuhra and Rucha and all these different words. To tone those is such an amazing experience. So the book is in the 3 sections. First, how did I get into this? What's my experience? And also getting other people to, look, go from your gut. Let that express. Never mind having to understand all of this. The second section is the layers inherent within just a single word. And the third section is let's tone it. Let's feel it from the inside out. And the book is, it's coming out in October. We're doing an Indiegogo crowdfunding project right now that started about a week and a half ago. We're about 25% of the way. We've got these amazing Aramaic Lord's Prayer canvases that we're giving in response to the contributions. We've got a one-on-one 3-day, 2-night retreat with me at Mountain Light Sanctuary, this amazing fairy nature haven north of Asheville, and lots of other amazing incentives like 22-disc CD, DVD programs, and all kinds of really cool stuff, plus the ebook, the printed version of the book. It takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to promote a book. I did approach publishers. Several were interested, and every single one that I talked with was very old paradigm, really young editors that, not because they're young, but they just didn't understand what it was I was expressing. They wanted to shift it, change it, morph it to fit the marketplace. And I was like, you know what? This is its own marketplace. We're ahead of the curve
like
here.
Society in the whole world these days, Dale.
That's it exactly. And it's been difficult for me because I didn't get all the accreditations. I stayed off the path. But the thing is, now here I am, at the age of 43, and I'm authentic and unique. And while it was very difficult for a long time, all of a sudden people are coming back to me and going, what was that you said 15 years ago that I wouldn't listen to? And I mean,
That's
toning is such a part of that because people feel it. And the younger ones, I'm not really here, and it's not really about age. I'm really here for the young ones because they're so completely open and they're being drugged and labeled ADHD and autistic and all these different things. And it's like, let's stop drugging them. Let's let them be their own authentic light. The reason we're drugging them is because it's resonating what's within ourselves that we don't want to feel. So let's dumb them and numb them so that we don't have to feel it.
And I think
let's stop it.
I think that's when a big awakening is going to happen, Dale. I've always said this for years now on the show. If there was an economic collapse or some comet hit the earth or something like that, and children were not able to fill their prescriptions worldwide, I mean, just in the U.S. alone, there's like 5 million or I forget how many millions of kids that are being drugged daily to shut down their pineal gland, shut down their natural intuitiveness, shut down their creativity. And I think when the pharmaceutical companies and things like that go down, it's going to take something, an event or something like that. And I think the real awakening is when the children are going to be off these drugs, when they could raise their vibration and, you know, in a way that it's not filtered, it's not affected. And that's why I do this radio show, to pave the way for the children, that when things and times are ready to put them on the airwaves, that this Starseed Radio is ready for them. And I've had children on the show, and I think that's the most important thing, is to listen to the children, because like you said, they're coming in so pure with the information. They know it. The veil has been lifted for them. The veil's been lifted for us too, but it's very hard to deprogram and see through that veil. But we do it in our own ways. You do it in toning. I do meditation. There's all different ways to see through the veil and help you balance out. Where can people find out more information, Dale, on you, follow you? Do you have Twitter? I know your website's Dale Allen Hoffman. Are there other ways people should follow, get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on Twitter, although Twitter's turned into such a big mess lately. It's so spammy anymore. But YouTube is a great way. You can just go to Google, write Dale Aramaic, write Dale Allen Hoffman, whatever. Write Aramaic toning, and you're going to get 5 pages about me without even writing my name in. I really highly recommend getting on SoundCloud, listening to some of my recordings, listening to the toning. Find me on Facebook. I just maxed out my friends. I keep maxing out my friends on Facebook, and then I try to delete the dead people, and then more,
That's not a bad
and then
thing.
it fills up again. Yeah, fine. I've got an artist page on there as well. I really recommend SoundCloud, but I especially, more than anything, recommend YouTube. Because on YouTube, you actually see full sound bites of me talking for an hour, 2 hours, 30 minutes. And I'm getting ready to release a full series of videos, not only with toning, and I'm toning out in the mountains alone with different people at waterfalls, water slides, all these different things.
Wow.
But
you'll also be at the Resonate Festival as well, correct? And 3DL.
Yes, that's
3DL.
in early October.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
And
in
also
early
3DL.
October. The first weekend of October in Asheville, North Carolina, where I live, the city of light. And yeah, I mean, it's a full weekend of sound healing, of resonance, of vibration.
And
yeah, it was amazing last year.
Yeah, I hope I can attend that. We also have several other people coming on. Scott Love, who's the organizer of the event. We have J. Gabriel Cavazos coming on, Liz Cox coming on, who else? Charles Gilchrist coming on. So we have a good group of people that are all going to be at that festival, so pay attention to that. And I also want to mention Portal to Ascension presents Physics of the Universe online webinar. That's awesome. Go to starseedradio.com. Check that out. Alfred Weber is going to be on that, which is actually coming on the show tomorrow. So there's another way to gain information is, getting the videos, like Dale said, on YouTube, getting his books, getting his audiobooks, getting his DVDs, learning this stuff. So Portal to Ascension is another way. It's a live webinar with many good speakers. Check that out. Information's there. And again, Dale Allen Hoffman, thank you for coming on the show, and we hope to have you back soon. And let us know how your new book comes out, and we'll have you back on to talk about it. Thank you so much.
Like the Martian, 'cause I come from Mars.